Welcome back to another exciting and empowering episode of Professor Hakim's Wealth Lessons. Today's lesson is entitled, The Huge Cost of Indiscipline, How Small Compromises Produce Major Consequences. In this lesson, Professor Hakim will explain how seemingly small compromises can quietly influence our character, our decisions, and ultimately our success. Before we turn today's lesson over to D.R.S. Hakim, I'd like to thank our viewers from around the world for the many thoughtful questions you've been sending us. We truly appreciate your participation. Today's featured questions come from Alejandro in Mexico, who asks, D.R.S. Hakim, in business, there are times when lowering your standards seems like the quickest way to make more money. How does someone know when refusing to compromise is actually the wiser decision? Our second question comes from Fatima in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, who asks, D.R.S. Hakim, how can parents teach discipline to their children if they themselves are still struggling with it? And our third question comes from Samuel in Accra, Ghana, who asks, D.R.S. Hakim, can discipline ever become too extreme? Is there a point where we lose balance? Professor Hakim will answer each of these questions at the conclusion of today's lesson, so be sure to stay with us until the very end. And now, without further delay, please join me in welcoming the founder of Retrain Your Brain for Success and the Triadic Alignment Wealth Institute.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for that thoughtful introduction, and thank you to everyone joining us today. As I sit within one of the world's most remarkable architectural achievements, the magnificent Taj Mahal in Agra, India, I find myself reflecting upon what it truly takes to create something extraordinary. The Taj Mahal was not built in a single remarkable day of effort. It came into existence through years of vision, careful planning, disciplined craftsmanship, unwavering commitment, and thousands upon thousands of deliberate actions. Every chamber, every arch, and every intricately carved detail reminds us that greatness is never accidental. It is built on disciplined decisions, one at a time. As I reflect within this magnificent monument, I cannot help but think about our own lives. Character is developed in much the same way. Financial independence is achieved in much the same way. Lasting success is built in much the same way. None of these is the result of occasional moments of brilliance. Rather, they are the product of consistent discipline, unwavering commitment, and high standards maintained day after day. In our previous lesson, we discussed the power of delayed gratification. We learned that meaningful success often requires postponing temporary pleasures in exchange for greater and more lasting rewards. We discovered that patience is not passive waiting, but disciplined preparation. Today, we build naturally upon that foundation because delayed gratification cannot exist without discipline. Whenever discipline weakens, patience and tolerance begin to disappear. When these two virtues disappear, impulsive decisions increase. When impulsive decisions become habits, the consequences eventually appear in every area of life. Today's lesson is titled, The Huge Cost of Indiscipline, How Small Compromises Produce Major Consequences. Many people assume failure begins with catastrophic mistakes. In reality, most failures begin with seemingly insignificant compromises. Very few businesses collapse because of one poor decision. Very few marriages deteriorate because of one disagreement. Financial hardship seldom begins with one unnecessary purchase. More often, decline begins quietly with one ignored responsibility, one postponed obligation, one broken promise, one abandoned standard. One of the greatest misconceptions people have is that small decisions have small consequences. The truth is quite the opposite. Small decisions repeated consistently become habits, and habits eventually become character. Character then influences nearly every result we experience throughout our lives. Discipline, therefore, is not merely about controlling behavior. Discipline is about protecting your future before your future arrives. Consider our first illustration. Imagine a massive concrete dam that has safely held back billions of gallons of water for decades. One day, an engineer notices a hairline crack along one section of the wall. At first, the crack appears insignificant. It seems too small to deserve immediate attention. Days pass, Weeks pass, months pass. Water slowly continues applying pressure against that tiny weakness. Eventually, the crack widens, more water enters, structural integrity begins to weaken. What was once almost invisible eventually becomes catastrophic, not because the crack suddenly appeared, but because it was repeatedly ignored. Our lives often operate according to this same principle. Indiscipline rarely announces itself dramatically. It whispers, "I'll do it tomorrow, just this once. It really doesn't matter. No one will notice." Yet every compromise that repeatedly goes uncorrected slowly enlarges until consequences become unavoidable. This is why highly successful individuals place such extraordinary value upon standards. They understand that protecting small disciplines prevents large problems. Financially successful people rarely ask themselves whether they can afford something. Instead, they ask whether purchasing it aligns with their long-term objectives. Healthy individuals seldom decide whether to exercise each day. Instead, exercise becomes part of who they are. Great leaders do not wait until crises develop before acting responsibly. They maintain consistent standards long before difficulties arise. Notice the common denominator. Discipline becomes their lifestyle rather than an occasional decision. Unfortunately, many people desire extraordinary outcomes while practicing ordinary commitment. They hope for financial security while neglecting financial planning. They desire healthy relationships while refusing to improve communication. They seek business success while avoiding personal growth. The marketplace seldom rewards desire alone. It rewards disciplined behavior demonstrated consistently over time. This brings us naturally to triadic alignment. One of the foundational principles I teach is that lasting transformation requires harmony between the cranial brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. When these three systems function together, decisions become clearer, emotions become more stable, and disciplined behavior becomes increasingly natural. Your cranial brain provides knowledge and rational thought. Your heart brain influences values, emotional commitment, and conviction. Your gut brain contributes intuition, courage, perseverance, and action. Suppose your cranial brain understands the importance of saving money, yet your heart remains emotionally attached to unnecessary spending. Your gut may feel uncertain whenever difficult financial choices arise. Although knowledge exists, internal conflict remains. Without triadic alignment, discipline becomes exhausting because each decision feels like a battle between competing desires. However, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions begin working together, discipline no longer feels like punishment. It becomes the natural expression of who you are becoming. True wealth begins with internal order before external abundance. Likewise, lasting transformation begins long before it becomes visible to the world. Another principle we continually examine throughout these lessons involves recognizing and eliminating what I call negative acidic toxins or NOTs, while intentionally cultivating positive essential nutrients or PENs. NOTs are the recurring thoughts, excuses, attitudes, fears, resentments, and limiting beliefs that quietly weaken discipline. They encourage procrastination, justify compromise, normalize mediocrity, and convince us that excellence can wait until tomorrow. PENs, on the other hand, strengthen discipline. They include gratitude, responsibility, integrity, patience, accountability, consistency, humility, perseverance, righteousness, and self-respect. Every day we feed one or the other. Every thought strengthens either our discipline or our indiscipline. Eventually, our repeated thoughts become repeated behaviors, and repeated behaviors determine the quality of our future. Allow me to share one additional illustration. Imagine an airplane traveling from New York to London. During the flight, the pilot continuously makes small corrections. Slight changes in wind, air pressure, weather conditions, and atmospheric currents constantly require tiny adjustments. Most passengers never notice these corrections because they are small. Now imagine if the pilot refused to make those adjustments. The airplane would not instantly crash. Instead, it would slowly drift farther and farther away from its intended destination until eventually arriving hundreds of miles from where it was originally intended to land. Life works exactly the same way. Many people never suddenly become unsuccessful. They simply stop making the small corrections that success requires. They ignore developing habits. They tolerate declining standards. They postpone necessary improvements. They delay important conversations. They neglect continuous learning. Over time, they find themselves living a life they never intended, not because of one catastrophic decision, but because of thousands of neglected corrections. This is precisely why I encourage you to secure a copy of my manuscripts, starting with Retrain Your Brain and Heart for Financial Success. During these wealth lessons, we can only introduce a limited number of these principles. Within the manuscripts, we explore in much greater depth how attitudes, beliefs, emotional conditioning, habits, and disciplined behavior influence every aspect of financial and personal success. If you are serious about creating lasting transformation, I believe you will find tremendous value in studying these principles more deeply. Before we continue, I would like to introduce you to another remarkable aspect of the human nervous system that helps explain why discipline becomes easier for some individuals and increasingly difficult for others. It is known as the Reticular Activating System, often abbreviated as the R.S. Although many people have never heard of it, understanding how it functions can provide valuable insight into why some individuals consistently recognize opportunities to improve themselves, while others continually notice only distractions and excuses. The Reticular Activating System is a network of interconnected nerve cells located deep within the brainstem, extending through an area known as the reticular formation. Positioned between the spinal cord and the higher regions of the brain, it serves as one of the nervous system's primary filtering mechanisms. Although relatively small in size, it performs one of the brain's most remarkable functions. It continually determines which information deserves your conscious attention and which information can safely remain in the background. Every moment of every day, your eyes observe thousands of objects, your ears detect countless sounds, and your body continually receives information through touch, movement, temperature, and other sensory experiences. If your conscious awareness attempted to process every piece of information simultaneously, you would quickly become overwhelmed. Instead, the Reticular Activating System quietly filters this enormous amount of sensory information before much of it reaches your conscious awareness. In many respects, it continually asks one silent question: what is important enough for me to notice? This becomes extremely important when we discuss discipline. Your Reticular Activating System is continually being trained by your repeated thoughts, repeated behaviors, and repeated decisions. Whatever you consistently focus upon gradually becomes easier for your cranial brain to recognize. In other words, your daily habits teach your cranial brain what deserves your attention. A disciplined individual continually trains the Reticular Activating System to notice responsibility, preparation, opportunity, consistency, and improvement. An undisciplined individual, however, often trains the cranial brain to notice comfort, convenience, distractions, procrastination, and excuses. Over time, each person's cranial brain becomes increasingly efficient at recognizing exactly what it has been conditioned to seek. Eventually, discipline becomes less dependent upon willpower because the cranial brain itself has learned to identify disciplined opportunities instead of convenient excuses. Allow me to illustrate this principle with a few simple examples. Imagine that after a month of research, you finally decide that you would like to purchase a particular make and model of automobile. Prior to making that decision, you rarely noticed that vehicle on the road. Hundreds of them may have driven past you every week without attracting your attention because your cranial brain had no reason to consider them important. However, shortly after deciding that you wanted that specific automobile, something remarkable seems to happen. Suddenly, you begin seeing that same vehicle everywhere. You notice it parked outside restaurants, driving through your neighborhood, waiting at traffic lights, and traveling on the highway. It almost feels as though everyone purchased the same automobile overnight. Of course, that is not what happened. Those vehicles were always present. What changed was not the environment, but your attention. The moment you identify that automobile as something important, your Reticular Activating System began filtering your surroundings differently. It started recognizing information that had previously gone unnoticed. This is precisely how the reticular activating system operates. It continually directs your attention toward whatever your cranial brain, heart brain, and gut brain have repeatedly identified as significant. Now consider another example that relates directly to discipline. Imagine two university students enrolled in the same course, attending the same lectures, reading the same textbooks, and preparing for the very same final examination. Both possess similar intellectual ability, yet their academic results become dramatically different. The first student continually notices distractions. While studying, the telephone seems impossible to ignore. Social media notifications demand constant attention, and every invitation from friends appears more appealing than preparing for the examination. Whenever an excuse presents itself, the student's attention is immediately drawn toward it. Over time, procrastination becomes easier because the cranial brain has been conditioned to recognize distractions before responsibilities. The second student exists within the very same environment, but has trained the reticular activating system differently. Instead of immediately noticing distractions, this student notices opportunities to improve. A quiet room becomes an ideal place to study. An additional 30 minutes between classes becomes valuable preparation time. Helpful conversations with professors become opportunities to ask questions and deepen understanding. Everyday disciplined decisions reinforce what the cranial brain has learned to consider important. Although both students experience the same circumstances, their reticular activating systems have been trained differently. One continually recognizes reasons to delay action, while the other continually recognizes opportunities to act responsibly. This demonstrates that discipline is influenced not only by our environment, but also by what we have conditioned our brains to notice. Allow me to share one final example. Imagine two individuals who each establish a small business on the very same street. Both begin with similar financial resources, comparable products, and equal opportunities for success. During the first few months, business is slow for both owners, and each faces disappointment, uncertainty, and unexpected challenges. The first business owner begins focusing almost exclusively on every obstacle. He notices declining sales, difficult customers, rising expenses, and competitors. As weeks pass, his reticular activating system becomes increasingly conditioned to recognize problems. Eventually, every challenge appears larger than every opportunity. Discouragement grows, discipline weakens, and important responsibilities, such as marketing, customer service, and professional development, begin to receive less attention. His business gradually declines, not because opportunities disappeared, but because his attention became dominated by obstacles. The second business owner experiences many of the very same challenges, but trains the cranial brain differently. Rather than focusing primarily on difficulties, she continually searches for opportunities to improve. She notices ways to better serve her customers, identifies new marketing ideas, studies successful entrepreneurs, and seeks constructive feedback. Every disciplined decision teaches her reticular activating system to recognize possibilities instead of limitations. Over time, these seemingly small improvements accumulate. Customer confidence increases, business relationships strengthen, and new opportunities begin appearing that others overlook. The difference between these two business owners is not simply intelligence, talent, or luck. It is that one trained their cranial brain, heart brain, and gut brain to recognize excuses, while the other trained their three brains to recognize opportunities for disciplined action. The reticular activating system faithfully follows the instructions each person consistently provides through repeated thoughts, repeated focus, and repeated behavior. This principle also explains why discipline becomes easier the more consistently you practice it. Every time you choose responsibility over convenience, preparation over procrastination, or commitment over comfort, you are teaching your reticular activating system what deserves your attention. As this process continues, your cranial brain gradually becomes more efficient at recognizing disciplined opportunities, making productive decisions feel increasingly natural. Conversely, every time you repeatedly choose comfort instead of commitment, your cranial brain becomes increasingly skilled at identifying reasons to postpone action. Today's repeated decisions eventually become tomorrow's automatic habits. This understanding also explains why I encourage you to complete this week's wealth assignment, to answer the self-reflection questions honestly, and to faithfully repeat the affirmations provided in this lesson. These exercises are not merely motivational activities, they are practical methods of retraining your attention. As your attention changes, your decisions begin changing. As your decisions improve, your habits become stronger. As your habits become stronger, discipline gradually becomes part of your character rather than something you continually struggle to maintain. The reticular activating system reminds us that discipline is not determined solely by willpower. It is also influenced by what we repeatedly teach our brains to notice. When you consistently train your cranial brain to recognize responsibility, opportunity, preparation, excellence, and disciplined living, those qualities gradually become your natural way of thinking. Your brain begins working with you rather than against you, making it increasingly easier to make decisions that support your long-term goals instead of temporary gratification. For this reason, never underestimate the importance of what you repeatedly think about, what you consistently focus upon, and what you habitually practice. Every disciplined decision strengthens not only your character, but also the very neurological pathways that support future disciplined behavior. In time, what once required tremendous effort begins to feel increasingly natural. That is one of the remarkable ways the great creator has designed the human brain. It continually adapts to what we repeatedly practice. Therefore, if you consistently practice discipline, your brain gradually becomes better equipped to support a disciplined life. Now, I would like you to spend a few moments reflecting upon the following questions. 1. What small compromise have I accepted that could eventually produce significant consequences if left unchanged? 2. Are my daily habits supporting the future I desire or quietly preventing it? 3. Which area of my life presently requires greater discipline? My finances, my relationships, my health, my spiritual development, or my professional life? 4. What negative acidic toxins have I repeatedly accepted that are weakening my standards? 5. What positive essential nutrients can I intentionally strengthen beginning today? Now, I would like you to repeat these affirmations with conviction. Remember, transformation does not occur simply because words are spoken. Transformation occurs when truthful affirmations become disciplined actions practiced consistently. 1. I choose discipline over temporary comfort because my future is worth protecting. 2. Every wise decision I make today strengthens the person I am becoming tomorrow. 3. I refuse to allow small compromises to weaken my character, my standards, or my financial future. 4. My daily habits reflect my commitment to excellence, responsibility, and lasting success. 5. I am continually retraining my brain, my heart, and my gut to make decisions that produce wisdom, prosperity, and enduring wealth. I encourage you to repeat these affirmations every morning and every evening until our next wealth lesson. As your thoughts become aligned with disciplined action, you will begin to notice gradual but meaningful changes in the way you think, the way you decide, and ultimately the way you live. During the next 4 days, identify one area of indiscipline that repeatedly interferes with your progress. It may involve your finances, health, time management, relationships, business, or spiritual development. Select one behavior and intentionally correct it every day this week. Within this week, reflect upon how one disciplined decision influenced your thoughts, your emotions, and your daily actions. Remember, extraordinary lives are rarely built through extraordinary moments. They are built through ordinary decisions made with extraordinary consistency. Now, let us turn our attention to the questions for today. Alejandro, thank you for presenting such an excellent question, because every business owner eventually encounters this very situation. At first glance, compromising a standard can appear to be a practical business decision. A company may be tempted to reduce the quality of its products, overlook poor customer service, or sacrifice integrity simply to increase profits. In the short term, these decisions often appear successful because they reduce costs or increase revenue. However, the marketplace has an extraordinary ability to reveal a business's true character over time. A business's greatest asset is not its inventory, its equipment, or even its finances. Its greatest asset is the confidence that customers place in its reputation. Once trust begins to deteriorate, rebuilding it often requires far more time, effort, and expense than maintaining it in the first place. This is why disciplined leaders consistently ask themselves a different question. Rather than asking, will this make us more money today? They ask, will this decision strengthen or weaken the reputation we hope to possess 10 years from now? True discipline requires the courage to sacrifice temporary profits whenever they threaten long-term credibility. History repeatedly demonstrates that businesses built upon honesty, consistency, reliability, and high standards tend to outlast those built solely upon immediate financial gain. Therefore, do not measure the value of a decision only by today's income. Measure it by the kind of legacy it creates and the trust it preserves for the future. Fatima, thank you for asking such a thoughtful and practical question. Many parents quietly wrestle with this concern because they sincerely desire to raise disciplined children while recognizing areas within themselves that still require growth. The first principle to remember is that children learn far more from observation than from instruction. Long before they understand our words, they begin studying our habits. They notice how we respond to disappointment, how we manage our time, how we speak to others, whether we keep our promises, and whether we consistently practice what we teach. In many respects, our daily behavior becomes their earliest classroom. This realization should not discourage parents, rather, it should inspire them. Children do not require perfect parents. They benefit most from parents who are committed to continual improvement. There is tremendous educational value in allowing a child to witness a parent developing greater discipline. When a father admits a mistake and corrects it, or when a mother establishes healthier habits and faithfully maintains them, those examples communicate humility, accountability, perseverance, and integrity far more powerfully than lectures or disciplinary actions ever could. As parents, we should never wait until we believe we have achieved perfection before attempting to guide our children. Instead, let our homes become environments where every family member is continually growing together. In doing so, harsh discipline ceases to become merely a household rule. However, discipline coupled with tolerance becomes part of the family's shared culture and identity. Samuel, thank you for such an insightful question. This is an important distinction because genuine discipline should never be confused with rigidity or unhealthy perfectionism. True discipline is not about controlling every moment of life or creating impossible expectations. Rather, it is the consistent ability to align one's daily decisions with one's deeply held principles and long-term purpose. A disciplined individual still enjoys moments of recreation, spends meaningful time with family, appreciates beauty, and experiences joy. The difference is that these activities are chosen intentionally rather than impulsively. They contribute to a balanced and purposeful life instead of distracting from it. When discipline becomes disconnected from wisdom, however, it can become unhealthy. A person may become so consumed with achievement that relationships begin to deteriorate, physical health is neglected, or spiritual responsibilities are overlooked. This is precisely why I continually emphasize the importance of triadic alignment. Your cranial brain may pursue ambitious goals. Your heart brain must continually remind you of your values and relationships, and your gut brain must provide the courage to act wisely rather than excessively. When these three systems remain aligned, discipline is guided by wisdom instead of obsession. Ultimately, discipline should produce greater peace rather than greater anxiety. It should create order rather than unnecessary pressure. It should strengthen every important area of life rather than causing one area to flourish while all others suffer. Lasting success is not measured simply by what we achieve, but by the quality, balance, and integrity with which we achieve it. As we conclude today's wealth lesson, let us remember that indiscipline rarely announces itself through dramatic failures. More often, it quietly enters our lives through seemingly insignificant compromises that gradually weaken our standards, our character, and eventually our results. In contrast, lasting success is seldom built on a single extraordinary achievement. It is established through countless ordinary decisions made with unwavering consistency over many years. I encourage you to complete this week's wealth assignment, thoughtfully reflect upon the self-assessment questions, and repeat this week's affirmations each morning and evening. Never underestimate the influence of small disciplines practiced consistently, for they possess the remarkable ability to reshape both your character. If today's lesson has encouraged you and you desire a deeper understanding of these principles, I invite you to secure a copy of my manuscripts, beginning with Retrain Your Brain and Heart for Financial Success. Within its pages, we explore the science and practice of triadic alignment, behavioral transformation, disciplined thinking, and financial success in far greater detail than time permits during these wealth lessons. Thank you once again for joining me today. It is truly an honor to share these lessons with you, and I look forward to continuing this journey together as we pursue wisdom, strengthen our character, and develop the disciplines that lead to lasting prosperity. If you found this lesson beneficial, please share it with others. If you have any questions, email us at the address listed in the description below or leave them in the comments section. Your question might be featured in an upcoming episode and may benefit thousands of people around the globe. Until next time, live long, maintain high standards, perform the best deeds, and continue to prosper.
Thank you for watching. We hope today's lesson has encouraged you to apply these timeless wealth-building principles in your own life. To gain a broader understanding of the principles we've discussed throughout this series, we encourage you to invest in your future transformation by securing a copy of each of D.R.S. Hakim's wealth-empowering and transformative manuscripts. Visit our online bookstore at retrainyourbrainforsuccess.com. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. There is much more to discover, and we look forward to seeing you in our next exciting wealth lesson. And remember, as D.R.S. Hakim has often stated, procrastination is the enemy of success.